It's about time to finish up that dandelion mead, isn't it?
She's pulling out her West Virginia. No, we didn't actually forget about this. And yes, it's really been 3 months. It's 3 months, like almost to the day in primary. So, all of you people that worry about leaving primary for too long, don't worry. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It actually started to clear a little bit. Why did it take so long to get to it? Life gets in the way. It's all good. But I do believe this is going to be finished fermenting, so I'm not even going to do the wait a week after taking a gravity, but we're going to check that gravity right now just to see where it's at. This is the first time this lid's been removed, by the way. Have not removed it since the day we put it together. But I am going to give it a little smell. It smells like mead. Well, no, see, that's important, because if it smelled like anything other than mead, that's not good. But it really does. It's got a really awesome smell so far. I'm genuinely curious about this one now. This one is it had dandelion petals, dandelion honey, and goldenrod honey. So it's like all flower and flower and flower from honey, of course. It's got a neat color, very light. Okay, now, as you might remember, this one started with that weird gravity. It was 1.162, which I still don't know how we got that high. I only used 3.5 pounds of honey. There's no way it should have been that. It should have been like 1.120, 1.130. It is sitting right now a little higher than I really like. 1.136. Which means, let me calculate that. Okay, this is at about 17% alcohol right now. It's not stalled. It's done. There's no way this will ferment further without putting in a higher tolerance yeast.
So what is the reading at?
1.036.
Oh, okay. Initially, I thought you said it was 1.136.
I may have.
Okay.
For clarification, because I might have actually stated that wrong, its final gravity is 1.036, not 1.136. That would just be really, really wrong and really bad. So, clarification. All right, and as we like to do, I'm just going to pour off a little bit into a glass. This is our taste to see, does it need anything? Do we need to make an adjustment? That sort of thing. So, I'm going to let Derica go first, because that's the polite thing to do. It does have a nice smell. I smell alcohol on it, without a doubt. That's quite pleasant. You know what? I don't think I want this to go drier. I think I like it the way it is. What do you think?
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine it getting better.
It's got a really interesting profile.
I was told that dandelion can be bitter and earthy. So maybe it's kind of a blessing in disguise that this is a little bit sweeter than normal. Because we've had that before when the gravity was a little higher, but they were an earthy, bitter, or a lot of herbs or things like that. It offsets that. That's why I always like to say, don't let a gravity tell you the sweetness level. Because it doesn't necessarily. You have to taste it. And it really comes down to that. I actually really like this. This is very nice.
I'm going to reserve my tasting notes for the official tasting video.
Oh, I have more to say, but yeah. As a first start, that is good. In other words, there's no reason to adjust this at this time. So what does that mean?
It's time to rack.
Now, there's a lot of dandelion bits in there still floating around and settled at the bottom. I want to get as much out of this as we can. So we're going to use the Cheesecloth trick, which is the cheesecloth on the tubing trick. A viewer said that. He said, "Oh, that's the Cheesecloth trick." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to do that." And basically, it's really, really simple. There's two ways to do it. You can put it on the end of the tubing going in, or you can put it on the beginning of the tubing. In this case, I think we're going to put it on the beginning because I don't want all those dandelion things going up into the siphon, clogging it up. So what we're going to do is instead of super thick, we're going to go thinner so that the flow can still happen. Gotta not stop the flow. And what I do is I just kind of put it on there and make like a balloon kind of deal so it's a little loose. Handy dandy rubber bandy. like that.
Now, before you freak out about sanitization practices, everything was sanitized. The cheesecloth was sanitized. The rubber band was sanitized.
We ran our air through Star Sand before we started filming. That's how sanitized we are. Total sarcasm. Just kidding. So we're going to hold that in there. I'm going to dip this in here. And I'm only going to go about halfway down, even though I know there's a cheesecloth on there.
Good.
Okay. And I'm going to hold it most of the time because I don't want to just drop it all the way into all that stuff and get leaves flying up and everything. I want to see how much product we can get out of this. Okay, so we got all the way to the end, and the advantage to doing it with the cheesecloth like this is I was able to jam that sucker all the way down there because I realized this is the first rack. I want to get as much of that liquid out as I can, and I'm not worried about it being a little bit cloudy. It'll resettle out. It's probably going to sit another couple months before we do the next part anyway. But the important bit is we used our new handy dandy fancy schmancy. You hear that? That's the numbers on the side. I love this picture. But when I look at that, we have just a touch over 3 liters, which if I put that back into here means a lot of headspace. So I think I'm going to use the 3-liter Carlo Rossi bottles. Now, a lot of people have been asking, how do I get those? Well, you buy Carlo Rossi wine and drink it, or dump it out if you want to. The bottle itself is worth it. But they've since stopped making those, somebody told me. However, there's another company. I'll have to find the comment that told me about that because I forgot the name. But any 3-liter bottle will actually work just fine. Okay, so we are testing out something new today. Somebody told me, because we've had bungs coming out lately, and these jugs are notorious for that. We've tried smaller bungs, but they still kind of don't hold well. So we got these plastic screw caps, and they were actually for the 1-gallon jugs, but it fits, which means, yay, I can put an airlock on this and not worry about the bung popping out. That's fantastic news. But for now, I actually don't want to put that on there. So we're going to rack from this into that bottle. Now, before somebody says, did you really have to rack to the pitcher first? Well, no. But if I didn't, I wouldn't know that I needed a 3-liter bottle until it was too late and I already had it in a 1-gallon bottle and realized, oh, that's too much headroom. Now, is too much headroom really that much of a problem? No. But we have the jars, so we're using them. Could it be a problem? Possibly. So, better safe than sorry. Am I talking too much? Most likely. The racking process at this point, because there's no sediment to worry about, we're going to take the cap off the bottom so this can reach all the way to the bottom of the pitcher. That's the other advantage to doing it in a pitcher first. And we just put the other end in the bottle, make sure that someone is paying attention to that, whether it's you or your assistant. If you have a Derica, they already know to do that. But she's mine, you can't have her. And I'm just going to get the siphon started. See you in a few. Okay, there was a little bit left in the bottom of the pitcher, and Derica will make sure that that does not go to waste later on. But for now, what we want to do is put a cap and an airlock on this. I almost said bad boy. I yell at people when they say bad boy in videos because it just sounds so lame all the time. So I almost said it. This sucker. We'll use the word sucker instead. And I'm going to stick my label back on, my fancy handy-dandy label with masking tape. It's just a piece of paper. But I do keep all my notes on that. And it's a good idea because that way we know at the different stages what we've done. Now, here's the thing. I talked about oxidization and headspace. Actually, I mentioned headspace, not the oxidation part. But that's the result of too much headspace. With a 17% alcohol, it's highly unlikely that anything bad's really going to happen to this. I'm actually shocked this went to 17%. It's just not normal, but I'm quite pleased because had it not gone that high, this would have stopped at a tremendously high gravity and it would have been almost undrinkable and I might have had to pitch another yeast to get it to finish. You know, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. It'd just be a mess. And that's not something that anybody really wants in their brewing. We want it to be simple and easy. So at this point, what are we going to do with this?
You're going to let it sit.
For a while. Let that clear out, let it settle, mellow a little bit, maybe a little bit more age. Then we'll be back with the next part. You'll see that in about 30 seconds. So it's been about 2 more weeks. Yeah, it didn't take 30 seconds. It took more like, 2, but whatever. And what we're going to do now, we're going to take this cap off and we are going to get a reading just to make sure that nothing changed. I'm reasonably certain this is still going to be the 1.036 gravity that it was just 2 weeks ago, but, you know, we check on purpose. There's reasons why. That way it doesn't continue fermenting and you don't, like, have an explosion down the line. That's how that happens. I'm using the master baster and a graduated cylinder with a hydrometer. Yes, you can use a refractometer. However, there's a ton of math involved if you do that once there's alcohol present, and I don't feel like doing all that math. So I just use a hydrometer. It's so much easier. Alrighty, that goes back into the sanitizer liquid. Yes, we have a little tub over on the side. It's called Turbos. You can't see it, but it's like right there, and it has stuff in it. Welcome to Turbos Cam. Okay, so I gave this a little spin, get rid of any bubbles that might be hanging on, that sort of thing, and what do you know? 1.036, so nothing's changed. That's good. That means we can bottle this today.
Because it's done!
Yeah. Done as in finished fermenting. Aging can still happen. This is only 3.5 months old, you know, from the day it was put together, so to speak. But before we do that, well, first I want to pour this out into a pitcher. Not into here, because there's leaves in the bottom. I'll disturb them, and then we can't bottle today. But I want to just kind of tip it to the side so I don't spill, and put it in there. Because I ain't wasting that. I know some people toss that out, but we sanitized it in.
The red bucket of sanitization!
And we're not some people. But I do want to give a quick sample on this. Okay, we're going to do a separate tasting video, but I want to just make sure that it's ready, that there's no adjustments that need to be made. I can't imagine it's going to need any. One thing, it's not very clear, and I don't really know why. As far as I know, there's no pectin or anything like that in dandelions.
But I have a theory. And this is a theory that I shared on the yeast holes versus nothing test video. And that is when we use yeast holes, there is a minute bit of cloudiness.
I would agree with you, except that we didn't use yeast holes in this one.
This is the dandelion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
They are not on my list.
But they were mentioned in the video and shown in the video.
Okay. Then we use them. I need to get better at taking notes. This is dandelion honey, goldenrod honey, and orange zest with dandelions.
And yeast holes.
And yeast holes, apparently. Yeah, now that you mentioned it, we have noticed that they've all been just a little bit cloudier.
Now, we also use D47 in this rather than 71B. So...
And the sucker went to 17%.
Yeah.
On the smell, it's a little young, but it's also got a nice floral zing to it. Zing. Yeah, that's right. I said zing.
That's not really a normal word for his everyday vocabulary.
You know what, though?
Oh, it does smell good.
I like that. I like that a lot. I get the little bitter note at the back, but it actually tastes more like a traditional mead to me. I mean, it's really nice, but I'm not getting a dandelion-specific kind of thing to it. It's just really nice and pleasant.
The scent, knowing that it's dandelion mead and then
you
smelling
get floral,
it,
yeah.
I feel like I'm in a field of dandelions. It's actually making me very happy just smelling it.
Okay. Chug a lug.
Because I get the floral notes, I get the grassy notes, I get the sweet honey.
Yeah, it's nice. I like this. This is good. I think this worked out really well. Can't wait to do the tasting. I'll have a little more. This is the glasses I drink from now. It's just really good. It's got a nice... It doesn't taste overly sweet. Even to me now, most things are starting to taste really sweet to me because we're not using sugar anymore. This doesn't taste it. Yeah, probably because it's 17% alcohol.
We are going to go through every aspect of the tasting notes in the tasting video to follow this one.
That was just to make sure we didn't need any adjustments before it gets bottled. So,
I think we're good.
Yeah. All right. So, like we always do, we're going to rack.
So now, our pitcher is going to go on the bench between us.
One caveat. These 3-liter Carlo Rossi bottles that apparently you can't get anymore kind of suck for racking because the auto siphon doesn't fit in such a way that you can get to the corners. So there ends up being a little bit more waste. If there isn't too much least in the bottom, I will pour off the last bit, but probably going to be all milky and nasty. So we just put that in a glass, let it settle, and then drink it later.
So because we do have Lise in here, we're leaving our end cap on our autosiphon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm putting the hose, tube, whatever you want to call it, so that it's reaching all the way the bottom of the pitcher. And that is going to prevent excess aeration.
With the guy. Where I grew up, that's how people describe things. You know, the place with the thing and the guy. And the weird part is people knew what you were talking about. I don't know if you can see this. The angle of the siphon just goes to about there. It doesn't go to the full corner. So that's where I say you lose a little bit doing this way, but it beats having too much headroom. So it's kind of a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off when it comes to homebrew. All right, so as you can see there's that much at the bottom. There's not a lot of Lise here, but it's very silty, very, very soft. So it just got all stirred up. So we're going to have to let it sit in a glass or something and drink that later. Now, because we're bottling, I'm going to use a bottling wand. It has a stem valve on the end, also known as the jiggly thing.
I thought you called it a springy thing.
Springy thing. I call it a jiggly thing too.
That's something else entirely.
Yeah. But what that means is when you push down, the liquid can flow. When it pulls up, the liquid stops. That way, when you put this into a bottle, when it's on the end of the tube, you can fill that bottle nicely, neatly, quickly, easily, and then stop it so that you can fill the next one. This is much easier to do when your hands are not actually wet. All right. And now, being that we used our handy dandy fancy schmancy pitcher, we know we have stop moving.
You have slight displacement because of the autosiphon.
We have just under 3 liters, which means about 4 bottles. So that way we know it's 4 750 ml bottles, and it just makes it nice and convenient. But the Carlo Rossi bottle is also 3 liters, so we knew that already. But now we're going to bottle. All right, so we got our 4 750 ml bottles through the magic of television and editing. And all we're going to do is stick this end in the bottle, put it down here because you want elevation change. And then Derek is going to hold that down because if you don't press the stem valve in, nothing's going to happen. And then I'm just going to start this going. Now, I probably should have removed the cap from the autosiphon first, but I have a way to fix that when we're done. Don't you worry. And now I'm going to take over. I have a system.
You get it?
I got it. There's still a little bit more left in this pitcher. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And this is why we love this pitcher. See this spout? It's like a funnel. It's huge. You stick it right in there and you don't spill any. Even I don't spill using this. This company needs to sponsor us. Now, to those of you who are freaking out about oxygenation and all that kind of stuff, I know something you don't know. We're going to be drinking this in like 15 minutes. The tasting video is coming up right after this. You'll see it in a couple of days. But it's coming up right after this. But the chances of anything happening to this are so slim to none. This will be refrigerated once we drink it because it's a little too much headspace for me. These are cool. They can sit for years on a shelf.
In fact, one of them will sit on the shelf, well, in the closet of holding for a full year. And we will do a tasting on that next year.
This one we're going to do soon. So you get like a young and an old version of it. And the other two, what are we going to do with those? Drink them. Whenever we feel like it. But anyway, what I was saying about this oxidizer or anything, this is 17% alcohol. Acetobacters can't make vinegar from 17% alcohol, so you're fine there. You may find if you left like half a bottle sitting out for a year off flavors. It really could happen. For the most part, though, it does take a while. We had 2 meads that happened to. They were the similar meads that there was like this much left in a bottle about this size. And they sat for almost, 2 years?
Yeah.
And then we tried them the one day and we're like, okay, this doesn't taste as good as it used to. It still was fine to drink.
Sure.
Just didn't taste the same.
And the way I would describe the flavor change is that it was like a watered down version of itself.
It muted the flavors.
It was less
totally.
flavorful than it was before. So
we actually got rid of it because there was, that much. But it didn't ruin it. It didn't hurt it. Well, it hurt it, but
You know what we're trying to say.
It didn't make it dangerous or bad to drink. It just made it not taste so good. By the way, if you like this video, look up. There's another one. You might like that one too.